Yo, hey guys, Bweeks here, back in another video. This is going to be a update on my Huntress gold find character. So our previous character was very squishy and did a very low amount of damage, but that actually worked in its favor because you would get a lot of gold. Since then we've added a lot of damage and defense. Damage will actually help with the lag a lot, so you don't have to worry about lag as much. Because basically the more lag you have, the more gold you're going to have, but at the same time you're gonna have less damage. So I want to build that I could actually still farm materials with if I wanted to, or still farm Reaper XP, or just, you know, that kind of stuff, kill elites, all that stuff. Because before I had to basically kill off the character if I got stuck in a room with an elite. So this one should be a little better in that regard, and it's also a little tankier, which I just, you know, hate dying on my characters. So anyway, this is going to be the build. I'm going to go ahead and show it off in a Wrath 10. We got the graveyard, not the best, but you know, we'll just run through. You can always fish for whatever you want as well. You don't have to commit to the graveyard or the prison. You can just back out by pressing the L key. And you only lose one influence. Influence doesn't really have any purpose at this point in the game, so you don't really lose anything for doing that. Anyway, this is the current state of the character. We do have some uniques and stuff like that. We're not quite min-maxed just because epic stats are very expensive to put on gear and to roll and get exactly what you want. And I've just not had enough time slash, you know, yeah, basically just time to farm all the epic materials needed to really push this character to the actual limits. Well, there's the epic thing at least. But anyway, I'm just going to show like every portal in here. We'll just go through, kind of show you the time at the end. Usually I get 200k per minute, or 100k per minute, which most runs take around 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm usually looking at 200, 300k per run. Graveyard's a little slower than prison, but it's whatever. And I think it's also a little laggier, just because the open layout, more enemies in, you know, certain spots. But whatever. There's also, we'll talk about some things, and I guess I'll go ahead and show off a different like variation you can do, which should help with the lag a little bit. So currently I'm using arrow shot, and I'm using the so many arrows. So if I switch to this one here, and I have 50% increased projectile speed, this gives me 50% increased damage instead. So I'll be using less arrows, but the lag should be a lot better, and it's of course more damage. So more damage is less lag, which is also a little less gold, but you kind of have to balance between like whatever's efficient, what's optimal, and like the lag. So you can't really min-max as much as you would want, or at least I can't, because yeah, it's very CPU intensive, this kind of build, and the more I would add to it, the more it would use. But I also noticed that it was the game only uses single core, that's what it seems like. So even with a better like processor, I don't know if I'd get much more out of it. But anyway, I digress. This is basically the build. So as you can see, you know, it's not lagging nearly as much. We still do a ton of damage, and we actually finished all the portals. So let's see what the actual gold number ends up being. So it took 2 minutes 34 seconds, and we got 284,000 gold. So still getting over 100k a minute, and we do have some optimization still to make. All right, so let's talk about the actual build, all the gear and all of that. So we're using the R Furious bow. We unlocked the Primordial, but it's just not good enough. The Leech is too strong, basically. The Primordial makes it to where you have to gain life through picking up Slorm, and since we're doing Goldus found instead, you can just stick with it. It's also a pain in the butt to unlock. But anyway, let's look through stats real quick. I'm at 10k life. That's all that really matters on that page. Attack speed, I'm at 74%. Critical strike chance, I'm at 100. Critical strike damage, I'm at 247. I have a little bit of armor pin, which kind of comes into play. Armor, I'm at 4.7k, so I have pretty good defenses in that regard. LE resist, I have 1.2k. I also have, the evasion doesn't count because I'm using the chest. Gold is fine, I'm at 456%. This will increase a little bit when this increases, and I changed my attributes from the last video, so I actually lost about 50 gold find. I'll probably make that gold find back up as I reinforce these stats, so the gold will keep increasing. but I'm not too worried. I think around 400 to 500 is completely fine. Additional projectiles I have +4 with the current setup. If I change the arrow shot back, it'll have +7, but it won't show up in this list. Pierce chance, I have 11%, but through arrow shot, I have 100. This is something you could get on gear if you wanted. Fork chance, I have 48.5%, but I have 50% through arrow shot, so I'm only missing 1.5%. So as I reinforce some of this gear, it'll kind of finish out that fork chance. Anyway, I'll show all the gear at once in a second. Projectile speed, I have 50%. Knockback on projectile, I have 66. You could get 100. I actually want to cut this out, but I have to unlock an epic stat off of one of my pieces of gear, and then I have to re-roll it, and I just, I'm not going to prolong the video to do that. But basically the idea is the projectiles are bouncing in all different directions and rebounding, so the knockback sometimes is knocking the enemies towards you, sometimes away, so it doesn't really protect you as well as I thought it would in the previous video. Alright, so quick look at all the gear. So this is a legend. You get +4 additional projectile. Each reinforce gives you 0.3 additional. So as you level it up, you get more and more additional projectiles. As you level it up more, you'll get 5 and 6 and whatever. But this is what I have. So it has attack speed, evasion. I'm converting evasion to armor, because I just don't like evasion in general in most games, because you either take 0 damage or you take 100% of the damage. I'm doing this so I take like a steady amount of damage. So it also has attack speed, fork, life leech. That's all that really matters in there. I'll talk about the chest since we just mentioned it. It has an evasion multiplier, and it gives me armor based off my evasion. And then whenever you're dealt damage, this effect is increased by 50%. And you can't dodge anymore, so it basically converts your evasion into armor. So that's fine. I'm also rolling evasion, max life, max life. I have some LE resist, some more evasion, and some life regen. It just happened to roll those epic stats. I would change it to pierce or projectile speed or something else, crit damage. But I just haven't had the epic materials to do that. Amulet, still the same amulet I was using before. I did switch to area increased size though. We'll talk about that in a second. That's because I'm using an aura. I'm using the aura from this belt, which will probably get nerfed after this video. But anyway, the aura from this belt gives you an aura that enemies within a 2.38 yard radius, the default is just 2, they deal 101% reduced damage and have +40 attack speed. So what ends up happening is the initial belt has 40% reduced damage and 40% attack speed, but when you scale up the aura, it only scales up the reduced damage portion. So I'm not sure if that is how it's supposed to scale either. And then as you reinforce it, it also scales up the reduced damage. So we have a little bit of increased aura effect just to get that to 100%. So anything within a 2.3 yard radius can't deal any damage to me. And that's pretty nice, but I think it'll probably get nerfed. If it gets nerfed, you have a couple free stats to work with, and you probably want to switch to maybe the stagger belt instead. But it still wouldn't be that bad. Yeah. As far as the cape, we have the golden fleece, so we have attack speed or increased effect that we were just talking about before. I'm picking up some movement speed on gear because I changed my attributes, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then crit chance, fork chance, gold is fine. You basically just want to get 100% fork chance with 50% in the tree, or 100% rebound chance with 50% in the tree. And then you want to get pierce chance, which you can get 100% in the tree, or you can get it on gear. And then you want as much attack speed as you can get, and you want 100% crit chance. So there's a lot of like things you can mess around with. I'll talk about them in a moment. Helm, I'm using the max life multiplier helm just because I like having a lot of effective HP. Roll and evasion, just because of the chest. And then rebound chance, max life, I have fork chance and rebound, so I just kind of got lucky with those. Bracers, attack speed, crit chance. You need mana leech somewhere, so here's where I have my mana leech. You need critical strike chance and critical strike chance again. Gloves, I have attack speed, crit strike damage, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, armor pin, which I'll probably roll away, but that's fine. And then have all skills have minus cooldown time, which is basically just more attack speed. I'm using this ring. Gold is fine, move speed, rebound chance, and it has crit strike chance and pierce chance. Boots are the ones we showed earlier with the gold is fine, and it gives you an increased radius to collect gold. I'm just doing max life, movement speed, crit strike damage, movement speed, fork, and then it rolled some random stats. The raw damage is okay. As far as the ring goes, this one's basically the same as the other one. I just don't have epic stats. This one has crit strike chance and pierce. This one just doesn't have that stuff. So that's all the gear. So talking about some replacement gear, but we need to talk about arrow shot, just the things that basically have changed and what you can change around as you go. So I was saying before, you need fork chance on gear, you need crit on gear, you need attack speed on gear, and you need rebound on gear. So you either need to get 50 fork chance on gear and pick this one, or you need to get 50 rebound on gear and pick this one. This one's just not worth it. 8 mana on kill is whatever. So this will save you some stats picking one of these. Next row, you have 100% pierce, or you can get 100% pierce on gear, and then you can go with the arrow forks into 5 arrows instead. Next, if you can get enough crit on gear, you can pick this one here, so you can get extra damage after rebounds. If you can't get enough crit on gear, you can pick this. It goes up to 40%, but you want to de-rank it if you need to, so you don't increase its cooldown time unnecessarily. Next, we have these two. If you're okay with the lag, or it's not lagging you, I'd go with the +3 arrows. Otherwise, you can do the increased 50% damage based on, or damage based on your projectile speed, and you want to stack some projectile speed. And then lastly, I do the forking arrows have a 10% chance to fork again. Second skill doesn't really matter, but this is what I'm using. Rain of arrows is faster, rain of arrows pulls enemies towards, rain of arrows deals more damage based on my projectiles, and then we have rain of arrows slows enemies, and then this is like a thing that basically never procs, so you don't have to worry about it. As far as smoke screen goes, I've changed a little bit. You could go for the 100% knockback, so I had that for a while. I took it off. I'm going just for more evasion, which will get converted to armor. I'm also doing when idle for at least half a second. You have +50 armor pin, which should activate a pretty decent amount. Otherwise, you can go for smokescreen, lasts longer, but I think this is the way to go, or even Serenity. Next, I have during smokescreen, you ignore incoming attacks and can move through enemies. So this is just if you have lower damage and you can't kill the enemies fast enough, you can use this and just run. Or if you're in like a terrible spot, you can pop this and you're like immune for a moment. You can get in a better position. Next is kind of what makes the build tick and why you want crit strike damage. So this gives you a 50% chance to drop Goldus. Next we have some poison stuff. You could incorporate inner fire if you want and do poison with inner fire, but I never found a way to do it, or just haven't. You could also use a different secondary skill that poisons, and you would have some poison damage going out on enemies, might help against elites. So this is where we get some of our aura effectiveness. You get +40 from here, which gave me the idea to use the belt. And then lastly, inner fire applies poison. This is what I was talking about poison before. You could do inner fire with poison, and as you're close to things, it's going to poison them. Also, when you're close to things, you're going to take 0 damage because of the belt with the aura. When that gets changed, that's fine. Also, this talent is currently bugged, so I've reported to the devs, but basically it should give you evasion equal to your armor. So it's either going to activate that before the chest or after. Either way, I wanted to test it out, but what ends up happening is when I select this, it actually removes all my armor. So that's kind of not what I'm looking for. We're at 286 right now. But when I take that off, then I get all my armor back. So I guess that's a stat I didn't talk about earlier. Is in Wrath 10, I have 20% reduced damage from like physical attacks, and then I have only 3.7 reduced elemental damage. But it is what it is. We might be able to get this number higher. So then we can talk about attributes. So attributes I changed up, and they might still change from this point, but I wanted to mainly focus on dexterity. I dropped the bravery. Bravery I was using a lot of points just to get the Goldus Fine 10% here and the Goldus Fine 15% here. That's a lot of points. You do get some attack or movement speed for going that, but I ended up just getting movement speed on gear instead, and I've preferred that. So what I'm actually picking up here is 20% attack speed. I'm getting some Reaper damage, max Reaper damage, 50 projectile speed, and 25% damage to elites. And then as a little special thing, I'm also getting the 20% chance to slow enemies by 30% for the next 5 seconds, which isn't that big of a deal, but I mean, it's something. But yeah, I wanted to go to these points to get the extra elite damage. That's free, not free, but 25% increased damage to elites. Also went for Fury here to get the crit strike chance, just helps get that crit strike. And then depending on how many enemies are next to you, you get increased crit strike damage. As you saw, my crit strike damage is in like the 240 range, so this will make it spike up way more, which will just help clear out rooms. I'm also currently using toughness, so as I increase my armor, I get elemental resist, so it just kind of helps with that. It also gives me some flat life. But these points could be switched into whatever you prefer, but this is what I'm doing currently. As far as the Ancestral Legacy goes, I am still using this Goldus find, Slormancer find, and Magic Item Quantity. This still feels weak, like just for a 5%. I guess I really like these Slormancer more, but this can be switched out for really anything you prefer. I'm also using Air Conditioner because that scales with my aura effectiveness, so anything in a close radius to me will get reduced 78.9% attack speed multiplier. So when they do in fact fix this belt, you can either just not run it and run maybe the stagger belt, or still run this other aura, and everything around you has reduced. So a couple other things you can use. This was some other gloves. I'm using the all skills have a minus cooldown, which is attack speed. You could use after rebound, your arrow shot has a 100% chance to fork on the next enemy hit, and you can drop all the fork on gear. So that's an option. I just went with the attack speed because my gear was already kind of done and it was just too much. As far as the stagger belt, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this is the stagger belt. 8% of the damage dealt to you is staggered and dealt to you over the next 10 seconds rather than being dealt instantly. Whenever you deal ancestral strike damage, stagger damages are removed, which is basically never going to happen because I don't have any of that. But it just reduces the damage you take and smooths it out over the course of time, so your leech can catch up and just keep you alive, which I don't think I showed where my leech was earlier, but I have it as an epic stat on this. What else is there to talk about? We talked about attributes, Storm Reaper, gear, gear swaps. Really, you don't need any of this stuff. As you saw in the last video, it was all in blues. You can still do the same build in blues. You can probably also do it in greens, I would almost guarantee. But yeah, it's all about just stat priorities and figuring out where exactly you can get what stat and what's most efficient. As you reinforce your gear, it's going to be even easier to get the stats because the percentages could just keep going up and up and up. So that's where I'm currently at on the build. There's a lot of things you could swap out, like the chest isn't needed. The helm, there's also the one where if you would die, you don't die. There's also the helm where you pierce the first enemy. So there's a lot of flexible legendaries here. Yeah, this is one that you could use, pierce the first enemy hit. This is the other helm. If you would die, you don't die. You know, there's a lot of stuff if you just prefer. I would say the boots are pretty up there on just like quality of life. I really like the shoulders, but you don't even need those for the additional projectiles. You could just use the talent and use some other shoulders like max Reaper damage, or I think there's another one that's pretty decent. I just forgot exactly what it was. There's one that gives you like critical strike chance. Anyway, lots of stuff you can mess around with, but that's the build. We might have one more update video at some point with it, but I think this is pretty much done. I'm very happy with it, and hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm also going to have a link in the description of like all my current items with all the pictures and stuff, so you can reference that instead of having to look back through the video. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If there's a particular type of video you want to see, just let me know, and I'll catch you guys next time.